Hey guys, welcome back to the YZ250 restoration project. Today we're going to be finishing up the engine back there. If you like this type of content, don't forget to subscribe so that you don't miss out on any upcoming videos. But yeah, let's get right into it. Okay, we're going to start by installing our Kickstarter shaft. It's a main shaft followed by this gear. Then there's a washer that goes in next. And then this spring sits down in a hole inside the shaft. And then the aluminum collar will sit on top of that. And now you want to space out this tab and the other tab. This one's going to sit into the slot in the case, and this is going to sit down in the lower portion. We're basically just going to set it down in there like that. And then this spring is going to wrap around and sit in the hole just like that. Okay, then the next thing we're going to do is put in the Kickstarter idler gear. There's two small washers. One's going to go on the bottom, followed by the gear. And then the other washer is going to go on top of that, and then take a snap ring. The other one was worn out, so this is a new snap ring, and we're just going to install that on there just like that. That gear should spin freely and not have much up and down play. Okay, next thing we're going to install is this collar. It's got a lip on one side. I'm just going to oil this a little bit and press it down into place. Just like that. Next we'll put on this larger gear with this collar towards the bottom, followed by the smaller gear which has tapered teeth on one side which will face down towards the other gear. Then we're going to put our washer on top of that. And if you remember in the last video, I ended up cutting the threads off the crankshaft. It used to have this brass nut that would go there, but the threads are damaged, so I threaded that hole and I found a bolt that's going to work, and I'm using two grade 8 washers. I'm going to go ahead and add a bit of blue Loctite to this first before threading it down in there. And we'll go ahead and tighten up everything later on. We're going to install our shift shaft next. I'm just going to drop this down into place here. These two wire tabs will go around this pin. Alright, just like that. Alright, so we're going to install this retainer clip on top of this seal over here. Now we're ready to install the clutch basket. So we're going to put this large flat washer down first, followed by the needle bearing for the clutch. Then we'll put our clutch basket on top of that. Make sure that your gears are meshing properly. Next we're going to install the second washer. Then we're going to put the inner clutch basket on top of that. Then we're going to put the lock nut plate on there, followed by the nut. Okay, so this nut is going to get torqued to 58 foot-pounds. Okay, so the primary drive nut is supposed to be torqued to 85 foot-pounds, this one here. So I'm going to do it the same 85 foot-pounds on this nut. This is grade 8, so we shouldn't have any troubles. I do have this gear tool that I made, so we can wedge this into the gears right here. Alright, so I got this nut torqued, and I'm going to go ahead and flip the engine over, put the flywheel on while I can still hold it with this gear tool before we finish the rest of this side. Okay, so the shaft already has the key on it, so we're going to take the flywheel and line that up. Then we have the washer and the nut. And I'll go ahead and torque that to spec. Alright, we got that nut torqued. Next we're going to put the gasket and the cover on. And just set that in place. Alright, we're going to install our clutch plates now. We're going to start with a friction plate down at the bottom, then a metal plate, alright, next I'm going to install the clutch lever on the other side, and then I'm going to install the clutch push rod, just like that. Then I'm going to add the push rod plate, and there is a ball bearing inside of here, so don't make sure you don't lose that. And now when I move the clutch lever, this should lift up and down. Now we're going to install the clutch spring plate, and then install our clutch springs and our clutch spring bolts. These take very little. Okay, so I'm ready to install the water pump shaft. I already oiled it up. We're just gonna press it through. And then there's gonna be a small washer that goes on top of that. Then we're gonna install the pin through the shaft, followed by this plastic gear. Make sure that sits down on the pin. And there's a big washer, and then we're going to install this little C-clip, just like that. Alright, next we're going to install the governor linkage assembly. That'll go through the side here. You're going to have to turn it sideways because there's a metal pin there. You have to line up your flat surface first, and then you can rotate it around. Alright, so those are tight. Then we're going to set the governor down in there, and we're going to have to get those pins to fit inside the groove here. So I'm going to rotate this up a little bit and slide the gear into place. So it's down into its slot, and this is attached. Next, I'm going to put on the gasket here. I'm going to hold the governor arm, hopefully prevent it from falling down. Alright, now I'm just going to torque all the bolts. Alright, so I noticed that my power valves had some damage. These holes were a little bit oval shaped, and the metal was bulged up on the top. So what I ended up doing was drilling into these deeper, about 1 inch deep on all four, and I went ahead and actually took off the metal that was cracked a little bit and bulged out, because I don't want that breaking off later. And I cut some pieces of spoke that fit right down in the hole, and basically just extended the pins because the original pins are too short, and that should hold it together firmly without any issues. And this little ridge shouldn't really affect airflow, I don't think. So one thing that people overlook sometimes when you get your cylinder board, you need to make sure that you also board or take away material in your power valves so that you don't have interference inside the cylinder and you can catch a ring and blow it up really fast. So every time you get a two-stroke cylinder board where you have power valves in there, you're going to have to check the clearance from the power valve to the piston. So basically, one way you can do that is by taking your piston ring, and we're going to set it down in the cylinder, the power valve area. You want to put it right about in the center of your exhaust port. You can see it up in there. Alright, so after taking off quite a bit of material on the power valve, set the piston ring down in there, and take a feeler gauge if you want to, or something to gauge how much gap you have. And you can push the power valve left or right in all the positions, and you want to make sure that you have enough gap between the ring and the power valve. Just make sure that there's plenty of clearance, at least a few thousandths, and you should be good to go. Alright, so I've put the piston ring in there and pushed it down with the piston just to double check the ring gap. You can find the ring gaps in your service manual as well, but sometimes the YZ specs are different, so just double check those, and we'll make sure that we have enough ring gap there. Alright, we're ready to install our piston. I've already lubricated the needle bearing and set it in there, and the piston has an arrow on it. You want to make sure that points forward, and I've already added one clip to the piston. We're going to set our piston into place. Make sure your clip is seated all the way. Alright, so I have one piston ring installed. I'm going to install the second one. And I'm just going to start one side in the groove, thread it, and walk it around the rest of the way. Just like that. And you can see the pin is lined up with the end gap there. Alright, so we're ready to install the cylinder. First, what we're going to do is take some Honda Bond, apply just a little bit across where the case split is. Then we're going to take our gasket, and on the Athena gaskets they have already a sealing surface, but I decided to put a little Honda Bond anyway. And make sure that your dowels are in place. We're going to lubricate the cylinder. Alright, so then we're going to slowly lower this down into place. Since those dowel pins are holding it up a little, I'm just going to tap it. And there we go. And then we'll put on our bolts. Alright, next we're going to install the two halves of our power valve. Let's put this one on this side and get the other side with the rods in it. Alright, we got the halves in, and then we'll put the bolt through it. Now we're going to install this cap. I've already oiled it. Then we're going to install this tiny little O-ring. The next thing is this little collar. And that'll help push that O-ring in. Then we're going to install this little spacer piece. Next will be this plate. Then we're going to rotate this upward and then put the last part over top, just like that. Then we're going to put our little washer on and the nut. And there is a hole down in there, and that's where this slot will align, so you can put a pin temporarily to torque all this stuff down tighter. We're going to leave this pin in so I can tighten the bolt on the other side. Alright, so we've got our cover and our gasket here. I'm going to put the gasket on the cover side first and put one bolt through it to hold it in place. Next, I'll be installing this cap on the other side, and I've already put the gasket on it. It's good to go there. I'm going to reinstall the cylinder head studs, and I'm just going to put some NICs on these. It's always a good idea. We've got 4 short studs that go in the outer holes, and then there's 2 longer studs that will go into the deeper holes. I'm going to use the double nut method to install these. So just thread 2 nuts onto here and then tighten them together. and then we'll just insert the stud. Alright, so I've got all of these studs installed. I've got our 2 O-rings here that we're going to install into the groove. Then we have the dome. It already has the dowel pins in it, and I've already cleaned this up. And we're going to install that. Alright, we've got these bolts torqued, and the last thing we have to do is install the reed cage. Okay, so we've installed our power reeds. Now I'm just going to put the gasket on here. We're going to insert the reed cage, and then our intake.